Hello and welcome to the Food for You and the Planet podcast, brought to you by Healthy Plan Eat Online Farmers Market. I'm Dr. Rosemary Ostfeld. Together, we'll hear from leaders in environmental science, agriculture, medicine, nutrition, entrepreneurship, and more. Subscribe to hear the latest in healthy and sustainable food solutions. Today's episode features Imani Black, founder and CEO of Minorities in Aquaculture. Imani Black is an African-American oyster farmer who was born and raised on the eastern shore of Maryland. She comes from a long family history of watermen that dates back over 200 years. In 2020, she founded Minorities in Aquaculture, a nonprofit that strives to provide support and useful aquaculture education to underrepresented demographics to ensure a better future for aquaculture. Thanks so much for being here today, Imani.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so let's start off with our first question.
Okay.
What is aquaculture?
Yeah, so aquaculture is pretty simple. If you think about agriculture, the way that we cultivate our crops and our livestock, terrestrially, it's the same practices that we do in the water with our seafood. So it's just the cultivation of and the production of seafood in a controlled environment. So things like shellfish, finfish, kelp, coral, and different things like that. So it can be used for commercial and for restoration together.
Excellent. So, what is Minorities in Aquaculture and what type of work does it do?
Yeah, Minorities in Aquaculture, or MIA, is a nonprofit that I started in 2020 after being in the commercial aquaculture space, specifically the oyster farming space, for around 7 years at that point. And working, at hatcheries, nurseries, and farms, and kind of the whole life cycle of oysters before they get to your dinner plate. And it was, being oftentimes the only woman on an oyster farm or in a lot of my spaces in the industry at a very, kind of early parts of my 20s. There was a lot of things that, like, I had to navigate through, like misogyny the first time, like, workplace conflict, and, ways of advocating for myself and standing up for myself. There were just like a ton of barriers that, like, I had to get through in order to really have the experience in the career that I wanted to, or that I was setting out for in those years. And so, yeah, it really kind of got started from, I was kind of at a point in my own aquaculture career where I was like wanting more, but not really like knowing how to do that, and kind of having some difficulties where I was working. And then, 2020 happened, and the whole conversation of DEI and the Black Lives Matter movement, and just like kind of different things that really, over the course from January until May, like really kind of were catalysts of all these little things. Like, I, in January saw my very first Black oyster farmer like on a Netflix show called Chef's Table. Had never seen that before. Was talking to them, and Ernest Senior, the father of the father son duo that of the oyster farm in Savannah, Georgia. He said we're the only speck of pepper and a sea of salt in all these aquaculture spaces, and I was like, okay, so it's not just me. So then, yeah, it just sort of catalyzed into, me Googling how do I start a nonprofit at my kitchen table. And just like kind of seeing that there were going to be a lot of conversations about DEI and about how to get more people of color into aquaculture without people of color being present. And so, yeah, I can't really tell you like the beginnings of that, or sort of what happened in between me Googling how to start a nonprofit and it actually being a nonprofit in January. But I printed out all of the paperwork and literally sat there for weeks and filled it out. And we became an official 501c3 in July of 2020. And then I officially launched it in October that year. But over the last almost 6 years, will be six in October this year, it really has morphed and shaped into kind of what I was saying before, a lot of those resources and barriers that I didn't get, but like really just the core of it is workforce development. So there's an issue within industries like aquaculture that are more hands-on, that are more labor, physically, intensive, that are really the pillars of our economy and the pillars of a lot of our coastal communities and coastal systems that are aging out. So, when you think about a waterman or a fisherman, you think of like kind of Long John Silver's, like the old white guy, like with the gray hair and stuff. You don't really think of someone like me. And so I think for minorities in aquaculture, we really kind of morphed and shaped into, we're just taking the smaller chunk out of the larger issue of workforce development and trying to move, like you said in the bio, like aquaculture forward in that way and make it so that it's more sustainable and long lasting and all the things. So-
I love that. That's really great work that you're doing. And yeah, it's so cool how you just did it. You got it going.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like it's one of those things where like I'm kind of glad I didn't think too hard about it, but I'm also like pinch myself sometimes like on the hard days and I'm like, why didn't you think about this more? Like why did we take a second to be like, what does this all entail? Because I had no idea. Like it was not on my life bingo card to start a nonprofit and do the things that I'm doing now. So I thought I was going to be an oyster farmer for the rest of my career. So it's definitely been an adjustment period, but it's been a fun and exciting one for sure.
So now this is in your family history, though. So can you tell me a little bit about your family history and how that shaped your interest in aquaculture?
Yeah, I mean, I wish that it had clicked a little bit like earlier. But I think, my love for the environment has always been there at a very young age, and I think that is just I'm a product of my environment, living on a coastal community. And living on the Chesapeake Bay, I think is just kind of ingrained in you. So, my immediate family are not in the environmental space at all. They're highly educated, but not in the same industries that I am. And so I was kind of, the black sheep of the family of like, why does she like to be outside? Why does she like to fish? Why does she like to be dirty? Like all the things. And then, my family did our genealogy, and then we found that we have watermen dating back into our family to the early 1800s, all up and down the Chesapeake Bay. So then it sort of clicked to everybody like, okay, like this is really Imani bringing our family kind of back full circle. And so, yeah, when I was starting MIA, that really kind of came into play because it really kind of, I got to really sow my oats in my like adult roots in my hometown because I went to college, like stayed away for a bit, but then came back to my small town. And I really, had to see it from like an adult lens, but also see it like and be appreciative and grateful for those roots and ties. And so it just like kind of gave me a different relationship with the bay and just the water and just my surroundings and environment. So yeah, I would say maybe deepen my love for the water and like deepen my commitment to being a steward of the water and just a steward of culture and heritage. I think that's one of the also core reasons behind minorities in aquaculture is that yeah, we focus on, women of color, men of color, gender minorities, like, focusing that on our resources, but really like I want to preserve and I want to restore and I want to really just honor the legacy of, watermen, fishermen, the maritime industry, of, the commercial fishing industry on all different facets. And this is just a way to be able to ensure that it's going to make it into the future, and that we actually start to really look at it as like a serious industry to really pour into because it's our food system. So, we have to take care of the people that are cultivating and producing our food. So, yeah, I think all of that kind of goes together. It all ties together for sure.
I love those types of full circle stories. So it's really cool that, you spent some time away and then came back and created something new.
Yeah.
So how did you get started in your career in aquaculture?
Yeah, I would say kind of by chance, but like not really, again, product of my environment. So I went to Old Dominion University down in Norfolk, Virginia, and studied marine biology there. and also played Division 1 lacrosse there as well. So my like internship experience was very limited, right? Because lacrosse is my full-time job. So when I was in college, I had to kind of take any opportunity I could to have internships, and I did an internship with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and their Virginia oyster restoration team down there. And because I had always loved Chesapeake Bay Foundation, always wanted to work for them, like all the things, like since I was a kid. And so, yeah, I got that internship my junior year of college. And yeah, I had just come back from a study abroad trip in Belize, was doing sea urchin feeding patterns, and like thought I wanted to be a tropical biologist. And like when I got there and was doing what I thought I wanted to be doing with my career, it just like didn't like bring like the joyous spark that like you feel like, oh my god, my dream job, I'm in it, I'm excited, I'm giddy. Like obviously I was on an island and snorkeling around and doing all the things, like so it was fun, but it didn't really kind of hit me like I thought it was going to all those years. And so when I came back from that trip, that's when I started that internship with the restoration team. And the first day we're like cutting bags like open of, spat on shell, so baby oysters that are set on empty oyster shell, like as a baby mini reef, and then they're put out on sanctuaries or on reefs around to like repopulate like the oyster reefs and stuff in that area. So we were cutting these bags open, we're covered with mud and it's hot, and like we're on the boat and all the things. And I just remember like sitting in my car like after that first day being like, "Oh my god, I love this." Like this was like the best day that I've ever had ever. And yeah, it was like I fell in love through it that way, and I had a lot of really good all my bosses were female, which was amazing. It was like still to this day one of the most incredible teams I've been a part of. And my boss there at the time told me about the program that I went into for aquaculture at Virginia Institute of Marine Science in Virginia, and was like, if you're interested in oyster aquaculture, you should look at you should look at aquaculture. If you're interested in oyster restoration, it's on the commercial side, it's the same thing and same practices. And here's a program here where we're stationed. And so I basically like applied for that my senior year. And they worked with my lacrosse schedule through the rest of the spring because we were having a good run, and actually went to the NCAA's that year for the first time in all 4 years. Hadn't happened until I had somewhere to go. But yeah, so they worked with me, and that was my first introduction in aquaculture. And it was really a program that kind of let you explore like hatchery, nursery, and farm to grow out. And then we would go and have these externships at different oyster farms in the area or wherever we were interested. And basically, the place where I went for my externship is where I had my first oyster farming job after that internship, and then the rest is history from there.
Why is sustainable aquaculture important?
Yeah, I mean, sustainable aquaculture is important because it's a to me it's a support system to our wild fisheries, right? I know that there's this narrative of like they're in competition with each other, but in my opinion, and in a lot of other people's opinion in the industry, is that really one can't live without the other, and we're going to need both for our food systems. But the problem, or the kind of other side of aquaculture and farm raised seafood, is that a lot of people aren't knowing what is going into it, the processes that are going into it, right? And people want to know where their food comes from, and I don't blame them. I want to know where my food comes from too. And so I think small scale sustainable aquaculture is really like the core of where we're going to be in successful, like the small mom and pop oyster farms, finfish farms, like really where like someone is taking care of every single organism there with so much care and love and attention that they are proud of the products that they put out, but also that they are proud of the people that they serve with those products. So, yeah, I think that when I hear sustainable aquaculture, I think sustainable small scale aquaculture, because I think we have to get back into our communities being involved in all ways, and also supporting our communities in all ways. And I think that's one of the ways that we can do that.
Yeah, I think that really focusing on local, small scale, sustainable food systems in general
Yeah.
is important. And I hope that, yeah, we start to shift as a society back to that.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that that is where like change can really happen.
Yeah. I don't know where we like kind of I want to go back to the days where like I know the people that I get my food from by their first name. I know where they live. I know what the chicken coop looks like. I know what the fields look like. I know every kind of morsel of it. I can say, oh yeah, Mikey down the road, yeah, he just dropped these off or whatever. He's got X amount of chickens and but like I want to know, and I also want to have a relationship with the people that grow my food because I think, and I'm sure at your farmers market and at other farmers markets, people really see that, right? You get to have that conversation of how did it go and like what's growing this season, what's not growing this season, how can I preserve this so that like it lasts longer on my shelf. Like you just find so much information and resources and community at a farmers market, and I love that seeing seafood at farmers market now too. And so I'm running always to that stand. Like, what do you have? Like, would love to see. Where'd you catch it? How'd you fillet it? Like all the things. I'm so nosy in that way.
I love that though. That's fun. I think that curiosity is something that like we all need, right? And
Yeah,
it just makes the world so much more exciting and fun when you get to like
yeah,
cover that stuff.
absolutely. A little whimsical magic when it comes to food and just yeah, frolicking in the farmers market.
I love it. So, what are some of the strategies used in sustainable aquaculture? So, if we were to go out to, a sustainable aquaculture farm, like what could some of those strategies look like?
Yeah, I think well, one of the strategies I think is our biggest and greatest weapon is that we're farming oysters. Oysters are have now been deemed a double net positive, so it not only is really positive and really helpful and impactful for us to grow them in the environments that they're in, but also when you're eating them, they are really good for they have really good for you at the same time. So the more oysters you eat, the more that need to be cultivated, which means the more that need to be put out in the water, which means that's gonna be more oysters that are filtering our waters and getting our water quality back up. So, yeah, I would say, that's probably one of our greatest practices. And I'm so proud of that because, like, I feel like oysters are such a super organism. And, not only are we finding different ways of using their shells, right? Like, so before we were putting them in landfills and things like that. And now, we're bringing, kind of banning that, and some states are kind of working on that and things like that, where we can use them in sustainable ways. Like we can upcycle them, we can use them in different shore erosion projects and different infrastructure and things like that. So yeah, I feel like it's a multi trophic system is really the practices that we use, trying to grow like shellfish and kelp together, finfish at a very, non-antibiotic, non, kind of injection, pure feed, all the things. And yeah, I think those are the practices that we're really trying to focus on, or at least that the people that I work with are really trying to focus on right now.
How can people incorporate more sustainable seafood into their diets? Like, how can they, like, what are some good maybe recipes or ways people can start to try some more sustainable seafood?
Yeah, I would say, well, first thing, I'm gonna do a little plug. Follow me on social media, Imani Black if you just Google. But also Seafood Bestie is like also what I go by because I love talking about this with people because I think people have a perception about seafood. There's been a narrative like written up about seafood that it's only like for the rich and only at white tablecloth restaurants. And like I didn't grow up eating seafood like that. Like grew up eating seafood in my backyard on a picnic table, like in the summer times, like at holidays, things like that, in my grandmother's kitchen. So I feel like the way that people can incorporate sustainable seafood into their diets is just keep being curious about your seafood, keep trying different seafoods, and keep finding, what you like. And also, explore the different, brands and stuff of seafood that you get, right? If you aren't in a place where you can go to your local market and get seafood, where you can ask the fishmonger questions and things like that. If you have to go frozen, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with frozen seafood. It's all about the label. It's all about what brands that you trust and what practices that they do that you value and that you want to participate in. So, one, it's reading the labels on your seafood packages in the grocery store. Also, it's, like finding different seafood within your economic, level or circumstance, right? Like canned tuna is also really good sustainable seafood if you read the package and really understand it. One little tidbit I'll give people is I know some people have probably seen dolphin safe tuna, right, on tuna cans. Um, Not gonna say it's a total lie, but I will say that sometimes you have to read the label further other than the symbols that you see. Because sometimes it won't be exactly like when you actually think about the situation, it's not exactly what it seems. So a can of tuna could have the Dolphin Safe label on it. Perfect. If you see that, great. If you pick it up, turn it around and keep reading the back of the label all the way down from top to bottom. And usually a can of tuna will say catch method, right? So it's telling you how that tuna in that can was caught. If that tuna was caught by seine net or any type of net, there's no way that it's dolphin safe. One, because we know trawl nets and nets like that always have bycatch, right? You can't control bycatch. So if you see those two things together on the same can, put that can down. They're lying to you. That's not dolphin safe. But if the catch method says something like rod and reel, right? That means that they caught individually each one of those tuna and only caught one at a time. So that's how you know there's no bycatch. Nothing else theoretically is being harmed as it's being caught and as it's being processed and all the other things. So, yeah, I would just say read the label. Like, that's how you can incorporate more seafood into your diet. Read the label, know what you like, discover what you like, discover who you want to support, and yeah, then stick to that and don't listen to the hoopla of like don't eat this, don't eat that. Figure out what you like and what's going to work for you.
I like that a lot. What do you see as the future of healthy, sustainable, and delicious food?
Oh man, I think I already said it back in the back earlier. I really hope that we get back to a place where we are bringing community back into food, small scale community back into food, and really getting back to just knowing where our food is coming from and supporting the people that cultivate it, supporting the hands that touch it, from the time that it goes from the field all the way to your plate, like being grateful for that. I think because of, big corporations and big stores and just all the things that have been going on, recently in society, we've just become so far removed from that process and kind of become desensitized to it. And really, yeah, it's so easy to go to the grocery store and get an avocado and not think about all of the hands that had to touch it to get it there. So I hope that we get back to that. I hope we start honoring that again. I hope we start incorporating that back into our stories of food, because really when you think about seafood or any other food, right? Like it's not it yes, it's about the food, but when you describe a dinner, you're not just describing the food, you're describing the whole atmosphere of it. And I think that's really, a sentiment that I take in with seafood is like seafood is home and seafood is conversation, seafood is community. And I enjoy seafood more when it's with people that are also enjoying it with me. So that's what I hope and I dream for our food systems, is that we can get back to really connecting with each other and connecting with just our communities around us.
I love that. Yeah, it's all about the people who make it possible. And if they're doing it in a way that's good for the people who are part of it and the
Mhm.
environment and the people who are consuming it, like that's the
Yeah,
dream.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about how people can get involved with minorities in aquaculture, like your internship program or other ways to support your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously follow us on all social media, find our website. If you Google minorities in aquaculture, we're the first and only thing that comes up. Not hard to find us there. So yeah, follow us on all social medias. We have a newsletter that we send out every month that just has updates and different things on there. So if you are someone who is in early career or mid career, or just someone who's like wants to build a career in aquaculture, definitely sign up for our membership. We also have a member portal that will be coming out later this year, where we're really trying to grow our network and our community connection a little bit more. But if you're someone who is just supporting the organization, or wants to share it, or wants to just uplift it and showcase it in any way, or wants to partner, then sign up for our champion newsletter. And that way we can connect and you can keep up with what we're doing and all the good things. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have our internship starting next week, so we have 15 new people that are coming through that are trying to build their career in the aquaculture industry around the country. So definitely check out, all of our content over the summer, see what they're up to, see who they are. And also if you want to support, it's not too late. We're still running our fundraiser just for our final push of internship resources. So if you want to support the interns and make sure that they have everything they need, definitely go check out our website.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No, I think thank you so much for having me. This was great. And like I loved meeting you at the Explorers Club, and thank you just so much for having me and inviting me. This was like such an awesome conversation.
Thank you so much, Imani. It was so
Yeah,
great to hear all about your organization, and I wish you
absolutely.
tons of success.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.